Fate works in mysterious ways. Sometimes the most extraordinary moments are born from ordinary days. For Jack Mitchell, a hard-working single father struggling to make ends meet, that day began like any other, juggling bills, fixing a leaky faucet, and trying to scrape together enough for his daughter's upcoming school trip. Little did he know that by nightfall, his life would change forever when a wrong turn would lead him to rescue 2 children from a burning mansion. What Jack couldn't possibly imagine was that these twins belonged to Eleanor Hayes, one of the wealthiest women in America, a billionaire who had been searching for love in all the wrong places until fate delivered it in the most unexpected way. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The alarm blared through Jack Mitchell's modest 2-bedroom apartment in the outskirts of Portland, Maine. With a groan, he rolled over and silenced it before it could wake up his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. The digital display read 5 hours a.m., another early start to what promised to be another long day. Jack sat on the edge of his bed, running his hands through his disheveled brown hair. At 34, the lines around his eyes had deepened, not just from age, but from the constant worry of being a single parent working 2 jobs. His wife, Sarah, had passed away from cancer 3 years ago, leaving him to raise Lily alone. The medical bills had nearly bankrupted them, and Jack was still digging his way out from under the mountain of debt. In the dim light of dawn, Jack moved quietly through their small apartment, careful not to wake Lily. He started the coffee pot and pulled out his work uniform, the blue coveralls of Mitchell Plumbing Services, the small business he had inherited from his father, but that was barely staying afloat in an economy that favored big corporations. As the coffee brewed, Jack sorted through the pile of bills on the kitchen counter. Electric bill, overdue. Rent, due in 3 days. And then there was Lily's school trip to the Science Museum next week, $50 that he somehow needed to find. "We'll figure it out," he whispered to himself, a mantra he had repeated countless times since Sarah's death. "We always do." By 5:30 a.m., Jack was in his old pickup truck, the engine protesting as he turned the key. The dashboard was littered with work orders and a photograph of Lily taped to the air vent. His first job was all the way across town, a leaky pipe in one of the wealthier neighborhoods. At least the pay would be decent. As he drove through the quiet streets, the local radio station crackled through the speakers, reporting on a charity gala happening that evening at the Hayes estate, hosted by the notoriously private billionaire Eleanor Hayes. Jack had heard rumors about the Hayes family, old money, tech innovations, and philanthropy, but they existed in a world so far removed from his own that they might as well have been characters in one of Lily's bedtime stories. "Must be nice," Jack muttered to himself, making a right turn toward Mrs. Thompson's house where the leaky pipe awaited. Across town, in the sprawling Hayes estate, nestled in the exclusive Crescent Hill neighborhood, Eleanor Hayes was already awake, though the sun had barely begun to peek over the horizon. At 36, Eleanor was a striking figure, tall with auburn hair that fell in soft waves around her shoulders and green eyes that seemed to pierce through boardroom adversaries and social climbers alike. Eleanor stood at the floor-to-ceiling, windows of her home office, coffee in hand, looking out over the immaculate gardens that surrounded her family mansion. The estate had been in the Hayes family for generations, but she had modernized it extensively, turning it into a smart home that reflected her position as the CEO of Hayes Technologies, a company that had revolutionized renewable energy systems. Despite her wealth and success, Eleanor's life was marked by loss and loneliness. Her husband, Richard Warner, had left her shortly after their twins were born 5 years ago, unable to handle the pressure of being married to one of the most powerful women in the country. The divorce had been messy and public, with Richard ultimately relinquishing his parental rights in exchange for a substantial settlement, a decision that had left Eleanor disillusioned with relationships but fiercely protective of her children, Emma and Ethan. "Ms. Hayes," her assistant's voice came through the intercom, "the event planners for tonight's gala are requesting a final approval on the seating arrangements." Eleanor sighed. The annual Hayes Foundation Charity Gala was her mother's legacy, a tradition Eleanor maintained even after Catherine Hayes had passed away 2 years ago. This year's event would raise funds for children's hospitals across the state, a cause close to Eleanor's heart, since Emma had been diagnosed with a heart condition at birth. Thanks to world-class medical care that Eleanor knew many families couldn't afford, Emma was thriving now, but the experience had shaped Eleanor's philanthropic focus. "I'll be down in a minute, Diane," Eleanor replied, taking one last look at the gardens where she could see the twins' swing set in the distance. Emma and Ethan would be waking soon, eager to tell her about their dreams and plans for the day with their nanny, Mrs. Lawson. As Eleanor made her way downstairs, her thoughts drifted to the gala. Another evening of socializing with Portland's elite, fending off well-meaning attempts to set her up with suitable bachelors, all while maintaining the poised exterior expected of a Hayes. The truth was, Eleanor hadn't found anyone worth opening her heart to since Richard's betrayal. Her focus remained on her children and her company, both demanding but fulfilling in ways that romance had failed to be. By midday, Jack had fixed Mrs. Thompson's pipe and completed 2 more service calls. His phone buzzed as he was loading his tools back into his truck, Mrs. Chen cancelling her afternoon appointment. On any other day, Jack would have been frustrated by the lost income, but today it meant he could pick Lily up from school himself instead of having her go to aftercare. The thought brightened his mood as he drove to Portland Elementary School. Lily's face lit up when she spotted him waiting outside, her dark hair, so like her mother's, bouncing in pigtails as she ran to him. "Dad! You're here!" she exclaimed, throwing her arms around his waist. "Got lucky with my schedule, kiddo," Jack smiled, helping her into the truck. How was school? As Lily chatted about her day, Jack's mind wandered to the stack of bills waiting at home. He had a night shift at Reynolds Hardware from 6 p.m. to midnight, his second job that helped make ends meet. Mrs. Petrillo from next door would watch Lily, but Jack hated missing bedtime stories 3 nights a week. "Dad, are you listening?" Lily's voice pulled him back to the present. "Sorry, sweetie, what were you saying?" "I said, can we get ice cream, please? Tyler said the new place on Maple Street has bubblegum flavor." Jack glanced at the gas gauge hovering near empty and thought about the $50 for the field trip, but the hope in Lily's eyes was impossible to resist. "You know what? That sounds like a great idea," he said, making a turn toward Maple Street. One small ice cream wouldn't break the bank, and Lily's smile was worth every penny. At the Hayes estate, the day had grown increasingly hectic as preparations for the gala intensified. Eleanor had been pulled from one meeting to another, reviewing final touches for an event that would host over 200 of New England's wealthiest and most influential figures. During a rare break, she slipped away to the twins' playroom where Emma and Ethan were building an elaborate fort under Mrs. Lawson's watchful eye. "Mommy!" they cried in unison, abandoning their creation to rush toward her. Eleanor knelt down, gathering them in her arms. Emma, with her mother's auburn hair and serious eyes, and Ethan, with his mischievous grin and boundless energy, they were her world. "How are my little architects doing?" she asked, admiring their fort. "We're building a castle," Emma explained solemnly. "For dragons and princesses." "Not princesses," Ethan protested. "Astronauts and aliens." "Why not both?" Eleanor suggested, smoothing Ethan's hair. "A space princess who tames dragons sounds pretty amazing to me." The compromise satisfied both. "Und children," and they eagerly pulled Eleanor into their game. For 20 precious minutes, the billionaire CEO crawled through blanket tunnels and defended cardboard walls against imaginary invaders, her designer suit collecting dust from the playroom floor. "Ms. Hayes," Diane appeared at the doorway, apologetic. "The caterers need you to approve the final menu, and the security team wants to review tonight's protocols." Eleanor nodded, the weight of responsibility settling back on her shoulders. She kissed the twins goodbye, promising to peek in on them before the gala began. As she walked away, she heard Ethan ask Mrs. Lawson if they could roast marshmallows in their fort. "No fire in the house, dear," Mrs. Lawson replied firmly. "But we can pretend." Jack dropped Lily off at Mrs. Petrillo's apartment at 5:30 p.m., his blue coveralls exchanged for the red vest of Reynolds Hardware. The elderly woman welcomed Lily with a plate of cookies and a wink at Jack. "Don't worry about rushing back," Mrs. Petrillo said. "Lily and I have a date with a jigsaw puzzle tonight." "Thanks, Mrs. P. I really appreciate it," Jack said, kneeling to hug Lily. "Be good, okay? I'll come get you as soon as my shift ends." As Jack drove toward the hardware store, the sky darkened with approaching storm clouds. The forecast had predicted thunderstorms, and Portland's weather was notoriously unpredictable this time of year. He took a shortcut through the back roads, hoping to avoid the growing traffic as people rushed home before the rain hit. The first fat droplets began to fall as Jack turned onto an unfamiliar road, a detour forced by construction on his usual route. The elegant houses grew larger and more spaced apart, and Jack realized he had somehow wound up in Crescent Hill, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in Portland. He was about to turn around when a flash of light from a nearby mansion caught his eye. At first, Jack thought it was lightning, but then he saw it again, a distinct flicker of orange behind one of the ground-floor windows. Fire. Jack pulled over, immediately grabbing his phone to call 911 as he jogged toward the estate. The operator assured him that fire units would be dispatched right away, but as Jack approached the wrought iron gates of the property, he saw flames clearly visible now through multiple windows. The storm had intensified, rain pouring down in sheets, but it was doing nothing to quell the rapidly spreading fire. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The gates were open, likely for arriving guests to some event, and Jack ran up the long driveway. As he got closer, he could see that while the main entrance of the mansion seemed abuzz with activity, staff running back and forth, some carrying valuable items out, the fire was spreading from what appeared to be a separate wing. Jack intercepted a frantic-looking woman in uniform, a household staff member. "I've called 911, he said. "Is everyone out safely?" The woman's eyes widened in horror. "The children!" Mrs. Lawson took them to the East Wing after lunch. They were playing in their fort in the playroom. "I don't think anyone's checked there yet." Jack's heart dropped. "Where's the East Wing?" She pointed toward the section of the house where the flames were most intense. "Through there, but you can't." Jack was already running. Years of working as a plumber had given him an intuitive understanding of building layouts, and his mind raced through scenarios as he circled around to find an entry point away from the worst of the flames. A side door seemed relatively clear, and Jack pulled his wet work shirt up over his nose and mouth before pushing inside. The smoke was already thick in the hallway, but not yet impenetrable. He dropped low, calling out as he moved deeper into the house. "Hello? Anyone here? Kids?" Through the crackling of flames, Jack thought he heard a small voice. He followed the sound down a hallway, the heat intensifying with each step. At the end of the corridor, a door stood partially open, smoke billowing out. Jack pushed through to find an elaborate playroom, one corner engulfed in flames, where what looked like a blanket fort had caught fire, probably from an electrical outlet or a stray spark. Huddled in the far corner, behind an overturned table, were two small children, a boy and a girl, identical except for their hair color, their faces streaked with tears and soot. "Hey there," Jack said, keeping his voice calm as he approached them slowly. "I'm here to help. Are you two okay?" The little girl nodded, clutching her brother's hand. "We were playing, and then the fort started burning," she said, her voice remarkably composed despite her tears. "Mrs. Lawson went to get help," the boy added, coughing. "But she didn't come back." Jack looked around, but saw no sign of another adult. The smoke was getting thicker, and the flames had reached the ceiling. They needed to move. "Now! I'm going to get you both out of here," Jack promised, kneeling down. "What are your names?" "I'm Emma," the girl said. "This is Ethan. We're twins." "Nice to meet you, Emma and Ethan. I'm Jack. Now we need to stay very low to the ground, okay? There's a lot of smoke, so I want you both to hold on to me." Jack took off his outer work shirt, tearing it in half to create makeshift masks for the children. He helped them secure the damp fabric over their noses and mouths, then gathered them close. "Emma, I want you to hold onto my shoulders like a piggyback ride. Ethan, I'm going to carry you. Both of you keep your eyes closed as much as possible, okay?" The children nodded solemnly, and Jack was struck by their bravery. He hoisted Emma onto his back, feeling her small arms wrapped tightly around his neck, then lifted Ethan into his arms. The boy was trembling but didn't cry out. The path Jack had taken to reach the playroom was now blocked by flames, forcing him to find another route. Staying low, he made his way toward what appeared to be a connecting door to another part of the house. "Do you know where this door goes?" Jack asked the twins. "To the big hallway," Ethan replied, his voice muffled through the makeshift mask. "Where the paintings are?" Jack pushed through, finding himself in a grand corridor lined with portraits, likely of family ancestors. The smoke was less dense here, but he could hear the fire roaring behind walls and ceiling panels. The mansion's fire suppression system seemed to have failed, possibly due to the storm. Jack had seen it happen before in older buildings, despite modern upgrades. Guided by instinct and the children's occasional directions, Jack navigated through the labyrinthine mansion. Every time they encountered flames or excessive smoke, he would double back and find another route. The twins remained remarkably calm, though he could feel Emma's grip tightening on his shoulders whenever they faced a particularly frightening passage. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, but was probably only minutes, Jack spotted a glass door leading to what looked like a garden. He rushed toward it, his lungs burning from the smoke despite the protection of his dampened shirt. The door was locked, a safety feature to keep the children from wandering outside unsupervised, Jack guessed, with no time to search for a key. And the fire closing in, Jack set Ethan down momentarily. "Stand back, kids," he warned, then grabbed a heavy bronze statuette from a nearby pedestal and smashed it against the glass door. The reinforced glass cracked but held. Jack struck again, harder, and this time it shattered, creating an opening large enough for them to escape. Jack quickly brushed away the sharp edges of glass, then picked Ethan up again and guided Emma through the opening. The rain was still falling heavily, but the fresh air was a blessing after the smoke-filled mansion. They ran across the garden, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and the burning building. Only when they reached a stone gazebo did Jack finally stop, setting the children down under its shelter. Emma and Ethan were soaked from the rain, their faces streaked with soot despite the makeshift masks, but they appeared largely unharmed. Jack knelt down to check them more thoroughly, looking for any signs of injury or severe smoke inhalation. "Are you both okay? Does anything hurt?" he asked, his voice hoarse from the smoke. Emma shook her head. "I'm okay, thank you for saving us, Mr. Jack." Ethan nodded in agreement, then added with the directness of a 5-year-old, "Our mommy's going to be very happy you helped us." As if on cue, they heard shouting from the direction of the mansion. Through the curtain of rain, Jack could see figures running toward them. firefighters in full gear, alongside a woman whose anguished cries carried even over the storm. "Emma! Ethan!" The woman reached them first, dropping to her knees and gathering the twins into her arms with such force that Jack was momentarily taken aback. She was soaking wet, her elegant evening gown ruined, her makeup streaking down her face, but the relief in her eyes as she held her children was palpable. "We're okay, Mommy," Emma assured her. "Mr. Jack saved us." The woman looked up at Jack for the first time, her green eyes meeting his. In that moment, despite the chaos around them, the firefighters rushing past, the mansion in flames behind them, the storm raging overhead, something passed between them, a connection that Jack couldn't explain. "You saved my children," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't know how to thank you." Before Jack could respond, paramedics arrived, ushering them all toward waiting ambulances. As Jack was led away for oxygen and treatment, he caught one last glimpse of the woman and the twins. She was watching him, still holding her children close, an unreadable expression on her face. It was only hours later, as Jack sat wrapped in a blanket in the back of an ambulance, that a police officer approached him with news that would change everything. "Mr. Mitchell, there's someone who would like to speak with you." Jack looked up to see a composed, elegant woman approaching, the same woman from the garden, though now dressed in dry clothes, her hair pulled back neatly. Only her reddened eyes betrayed the trauma of the evening. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, extending her hand, "I'm Eleanor Hayes, and I believe I owe you my entire world." The Portland General Hospital emergency room buzzed with activity as nurses and doctors tended to those affected by the mansion fire. Jack sat on an examination table while a doctor checked his lungs and treated the minor burns on his hands. Injuries he hadn't even noticed in the adrenaline of the rescue. "You're quite lucky, Mr. Mitchell," the doctor said, applying ointment to his palm. "Smoke inhalation could have been much worse. I'd like you to stay overnight for observation, just to be safe." Jack shook his head. "I can't. My daughter, she's with a neighbor, but I need to get home to her." Before the doctor could argue, a nurse appeared at the curtain. "There's a Mrs. Petrillo on the phone for you, Mr. Mitchell. She says it's about your daughter." Jack's heart raced as he took the call, but his panic subsided when Mrs. Petrillo assured him that Lily was fine. She had just heard about the fire on the news and was worried about him. "I told her you were being checked at the hospital, but that you're okay," Mrs. Petrillo said. "Don't you worry about rushing back. Lily can stay with me tonight if needed." "Thank you," Jack sighed with relief. "But I should be home in a few hours. I just need to finish up here." As Jack handed the phone back to the nurse, he noticed Eleanor Hayes standing just outside the curtained area, hesitant to intrude. She had changed from her ruined evening gown into jeans and a simple blouse, clothes that probably cost more than Jack's monthly rent, yet she wore them with an unself-conscious grace. "May I come in?" she asked softly. Jack nodded, suddenly aware of his disheveled appearance, soot-stained clothes, hair matted with sweat and rain, bandages on his hands. Eleanor approached, her composure a stark contrast to the distraught woman he'd seen in the garden. Only her eyes, still rimmed with red, betrayed the trauma of nearly losing her children. "The twins are being kept overnight for observation," she said, taking a seat in the chair beside his bed. "The doctors say they're going to be fine. No serious smoke inhalation, no burns. All thanks to you." Jack shifted uncomfortably under her gratitude. Anyone would have done the same, but they didn't. "You did." Eleanor's voice was firm, brooking no argument. "You risked your life for 2 children you'd never met. Why were you even in Crescent Hill?" "Wrong turn," Jack admitted. "I was taking a detour to avoid construction on my way to my second job." "Second job?" Jack nodded, too exhausted to feel self-conscious about his financial situation. "I run a small plumbing business during the day, work at a hardware store in the evenings, single dad, Bills don't pay themselves. Something flickered in Eleanor's eyes, recognition perhaps, or understanding. She reached into her purse and pulled out a business card, sleek and minimalist with just a name and phone number. "This is my private line," she said, placing it on the small table beside him. "When you're released, call me, day or night. The twins are asking for you. They want to thank their hero properly." Before Jack could protest that he wasn't a hero, Eleanor continued, her voice dropping slightly. "And I owe you a debt I can never fully repay. Please, let me at least try." With that she stood and left, the subtle scent of her perfume lingering in the sterile hospital air. Jack stared at the card, the embossed letters catching the harsh fluorescent light. Eleanor Hayes, CEO, Hayes Technologies. He thought about putting it away, telling himself he'd never call. People like Eleanor Hayes and people like Jack Mitchell didn't inhabit the same world. Tonight had been a cosmic hiccup, a convergence that would never repeat. Yet something stopped him from discarding the card. Instead, he slipped it into his wallet, between his maxed-out credit card and the faded photograph of Sarah that he still carried everywhere. The doctor returned, eyeing Jack's improved demeanor with approval. "Your oxygen levels are good. If you insist on leaving, I won't stop you, but promise you'll come back if you develop any coughing, wheezing, or difficulty breathing." Jack nodded, eager to get home to Lily. As he gathered his few belongings, a hospital administrator appeared with a clipboard. "Mr. Mitchell, I just need to confirm your insurance information for tonight's treatment." Jack's stomach sank. His insurance was basic at best, with a high deductible he could ill afford. But before he could explain his situation, the administrator continued. "Actually, it appears everything has been taken care of. Your treatment has been fully covered, including any follow-up care you might need." "There must be some mistake." Jack frowned. "I haven't given anyone my insurance information yet." The administrator checked her paperwork again. "No mistake. The Hayes Foundation has a special arrangement with our hospital. Ms. Hayes specifically added you to their coverage about an hour ago." Jack stared at the administrator, dumbfounded. "The Hayes Foundation?" Eleanor must have arranged it immediately. After speaking with him, the gesture was both deeply generous and slightly unsettling, a reminder of the vast resources at her disposal. By the time Jack reached Mrs. Petrillo's apartment, it was nearly 2 a.m. She opened the door in her bathrobe, a finger to her lips. "Lily's asleep on the couch," she whispered. "Poor thing tried to stay awake until you got here. The news called you a hero, you know." Jack winced at the term. "They got it wrong. I was just in the right place at the right time." Mrs. Petrillo gave him a knowing look. "That's not how the twins' mother sees it, from what they showed on TV. That's Eleanor Hayes, isn't it? The billionaire?" Jack nodded uncomfortably, gathering the sleeping Lily into his arms. Her small body felt impossibly precious against his chest, a reminder of everything he could have lost if he had been the one trapped in a fire. "Thank you for watching her," he said to Mrs. Petrillo. "I'll make it up to you." The elderly woman waved him off. "Just get some rest, both of you." Back in their apartment, Jack tucked Lily into bed, then collapsed onto his own, too exhausted to even change his clothes. Sleep claimed him instantly, dreamless and deep. He awoke to sunlight streaming through the blinds and Lily bouncing on, his bed clutching a newspaper. "Dad, you're in the paper. You're famous," Jack groaned, shielding his eyes from the light that seemed to aggravate his throbbing headache, a lingering effect of the smoke inhalation. He took the newspaper from Lily, grimacing at the headline, "Local plumber heroically rescues billionaire's twins from inferno." Beneath it was a photo taken at the scene. Jack, wrapped in a blanket, being led to an ambulance. In the background, partially blurred, was Eleanor, holding the twins close. "Is it true?" Lily asked, eyes wide with wonder. "Did you really save those kids from a fire?" Jack set the paper aside and pulled Lily into a hug. I helped them get out of a building, yes, but the firefighters were the real heroes. Are they rich? The newspaper says they live in a mansion and their mom owns a big company. They seem to be, yes, Jack said cautiously, unsure how to explain the vast gulf between their lives and the Hayes family's world. But they're just normal kids, like you. Lily considered this, then asked the question Jack had been dreading. Can I meet them? Before Jack could formulate a gentle refusal, his phone rang, an unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Mr. Mitchell, this is Diane Watkins, Ms. Hayes's personal assistant. Ms. Hayes would like to know if you and your daughter would be available to visit the Hayes family today. The twins are quite insistent on meeting their rescuer, and Emma specifically asked if you could bring your daughter, so she would have someone to play with during your visit. Jack glanced at Lily, whose eyes were still fixed on the newspaper photo, full of curiosity and excitement. He thought about the business card in his wallet, Eleanor's words. Let me at least try. What time? He found himself asking. 3 hours. Later, Jack's pickup truck rumbled through the gates of a luxurious hotel on Portland's waterfront, the Hayes family's temporary residence while their mansion underwent assessment and repairs. The valet looked dubiously at the dented vehicle, but took the keys without comment. Jack had dressed in his best shirt and jeans, and Lily wore her favorite dress, her hair carefully braided by Jack's inexpert hands. They were escorted through the lobby to a private elevator that whisked them to the penthouse suite. The doors opened directly into a spacious living area with panoramic views of the harbor. Emma and Ethan sat playing a board game on a plush rug, looking remarkably recovered from their ordeal. They jumped up when they saw Jack and Lily. Mr. Jack, they cried in unison, rushing forward. Jack knelt down to receive their enthusiastic hugs, touched by their genuine affection. Hey there, teammates, how are you feeling today? Much better, Emma declared. The doctors said we were very brave, and that you saved our lives, Ethan added solemnly. Mom says you're our hero forever now. Eleanor appeared from an adjoining room, dressed casually in linen pants and a simple blouse that probably cost more than Jack's entire wardrobe. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, giving her a softer appearance than the composed CEO. He'd met at the hospital. Mr. Mitchell, she smiled, extending her hand. Thank you for coming. And this must be Lily? Lily, suddenly shy, nodded, and half hid behind Jack's leg. It's very nice to meet you, Lily, Eleanor said, crouching down to the girl's level. Emma and Ethan have been so excited all morning. They've set up some games in their playroom if you'd like to join them. Lily looked up at Jack, who nodded. Encouragingly, the twins didn't need further invitation, each taking one of Lily's hands and leading her toward a room off the main living area, chattering excitedly about their toys. There are cameras in the playroom, Eleanor assured Jack, noting his protective gaze following Lily. We can see them on this monitor. She indicated a tablet on the coffee table, displaying a feed of the brightly colored room where the children were already settling in with a giant bin of building blocks. Please sit, Eleanor gestured to the comfortable seating area. Would you like something to drink? Coffee? Water? Coffee would be great, Jack admitted, the normalcy of the question. A stark contrast to the surreal situation. Here he was, sharing coffee with a woman whose mansion he'd broken into yesterday to save her children, whose wealth was so vast it was almost incomprehensible to him. A staff member appeared with a tray of coffee and pastries, then discreetly withdrew. Eleanor poured for them both, her movements graceful and efficient. How are you feeling? She asked, genuine concern in her voice. Any ill effects from the smoke? Just a headache, Jack shrugged. Nothing serious. Eleanor nodded, taking a sip of her coffee before setting it down carefully. Mr. Mitchell, Jack, I want to thank you properly for what you did yesterday. You already did, Jack interrupted gently. At the hospital, the insurance coverage was extremely generous but unnecessary. That was the bare minimum, Eleanor said, leaning forward slightly. You saved my children's lives, Jack. There is nothing more precious to me in this world. The intensity in her eyes made Jack uncomfortable. He cleared his throat. I'm just glad I was there at the right time. As am I. Eleanor smiled, softly. But I'd like to do more, to help you as you helped my family. Jack stiffened. I don't need charity, Miss Hayes. Eleanor, please, she corrected. And I'm not offering charity. I'm offering an opportunity. She reached for a folder on the coffee table and handed it to Jack. Inside was a detailed proposal, a contract for Mitchell Plumbing Services to become the exclusive maintenance provider for all Hayes Technologies facilities in the Portland area, as well as for the Hayes estate once repairs were completed. Jack stared at the proposed terms, the figures swimming before his eyes. The annual contract value was more than he currently earned in 3 years from his business. This is very generous, he said carefully, closing the folder. But it feels like a reward. Eleanor finished for him. It's not. It's a business proposition. I've done my research, Jack. Your company has an excellent reputation. Small, yes, but known for quality work and integrity. Hayes Technologies needs reliable, trustworthy service providers. This arrangement would benefit us both. Jack hesitated, torn between pride and practicality. The contract would transform his struggling business, allow him to quit his second job, give Lily the stability she deserved. But accepting felt somehow like admitting he couldn't make it on his own. You don't have to decide now, Eleanor said, sensing his conflict. Take the proposal home, review it properly, discuss it with your accountant if you have one, or I can recommend someone who could walk you through the details. Thank you, Jack said finally, tucking the folder under his arm. I'll think about it. Eleanor nodded, apparently satisfied with this response. Now tell me about Lily. She seems like a wonderful child. The tension broken, Jack found himself talking about his daughter, her love of science, her artistic talent, how brave she'd been since losing her mother. Eleanor listened attentively, asking questions that revealed her genuine interest. In turn, she spoke of the twins, Emma's heart condition that had required surgery when she was an infant, Ethan's boundless energy, the challenges of raising them, alone after her divorce. It wasn't what I expected, Eleanor admitted, a rare vulnerability crossing her face. Having children, being solely responsible for their lives, their happiness, it's terrifying sometimes. Jack nodded, recognizing the feeling all too well. Every day I worry I'm not enough, that Lily needs more than I can give her. From what I can see, you're giving her everything that matters, Eleanor said quietly. Their conversation was interrupted by peals of laughter from the playroom. On the monitor, they could see the 3 children constructing an elaborate tower. Together, Lily patiently showing the twins how to balance the blocks for maximum stability. They're getting along well, Eleanor observed, a smile softening her features. Lily's always been good with younger kids, Jack said proudly. She helps out with the kindergartners at her school sometimes. Eleanor hesitated, then asked, would they like to have a playdate sometime? The twins don't have many friends their age. Richard, my ex-husband, was worried about security, kept them isolated. Since the divorce, I've been trying to give them more normal childhood experiences, but it's been challenging. Jack considered the request. On the surface, it seemed simple enough, just kids playing together. But he knew it was more complicated than that. Their worlds were vastly different, yet watching Lily with the twins, those differences seemed to fade away. I think Lily would like that, he said finally. Eleanor's smile was genuine, reaching her, eyes in a way that transformed her face. For a moment, Jack glimpsed the woman behind the billionaire CEO persona, a mother who wanted happiness for her children, a woman who perhaps was as lonely in her world as Jack sometimes felt in his. Perfect, she said. Perhaps next weekend? The hotel has a lovely children's activity center, or we could take them to the aquarium. Emma's been begging to see the new penguin exhibit. As they discussed potential plans, Jack found himself relaxing, the initial awkwardness of their situation giving way to the easy conversation of two single parents. When Lily and the twins eventually emerged from the playroom, flushed with excitement and eager to show off their creation, the adults were surprised to discover they'd been talking for nearly 2 hours. "Dad! Emma and Ethan have all the coolest blocks ever," Lily exclaimed. "And guess what? They've never been to Bellamy Park, can you believe it? I told them about the big slide and the duck pond and they really want to go." "Maybe we can take them sometime," Jack suggested, catching Eleanor's eye. "If it's okay with their mom." "I think that would be wonderful," Eleanor agreed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture that seemed almost shy. "In fact, I was just inviting you both to join us for an outing next weekend." The children's excited chatter filled the room as they discussed all the possibilities. Jack watched Lily animated and happier than he'd seen her in months, already forming a bond with the twins, despite the vast differences in their circumstances. As the visit came to an end, Eleanor walked them to the elevator. The twins hugged Lily goodbye, extracting promises to play again soon. When Jack extended his hand to Eleanor, she took it, but held on a moment longer than necessary. "Thank you for coming today," she said softly. "It meant a lot to the twins and to me." Jack nodded, suddenly aware of the slight calluses on her hands, unexpected for a woman of her wealth and position. "Thank you for inviting us." Lily had a great time. As the elevator doors began to close, Eleanor called out, "Jack, about the proposal." "I'll think about it," he promised. "No, not that," Eleanor said quickly. "I just wanted to say, no pressure. Whatever you decide won't change the playdate plans. This isn't a package deal." The doors closed before Jack could respond, but her words stayed with him as he and Lily drove home. Lily chattering excitedly about her new friends and their amazing toys. That night, after Lily was asleep, Jack sat at his small kitchen table with Eleanor's proposal open before him. The terms were more than fair. They were generous. The work would be steady, the pay substantial enough to transform their lives. He could quit his night job, spend more evenings with Lily, maybe even move to a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. Yet, something held him back from immediately accepting. Pride, perhaps, or the nagging feeling that this opportunity hadn't come his way because of his skills as a plumber, but because he'd been in the right place at the right time. Beside the contract lay Eleanor's business card. Jack picked it up, running his thumb over the embossed letters. He thought about her smile when the children were playing, the vulnerability in her eyes when she spoke of raising the twins alone, the surprising calluses on her hands. Looking around his small apartment, the leaky faucet he hadn't had time to fix, the second-hand furniture, the stack of overdue bills on the counter, Jack made a decision. He reached for his phone and dialed the number on the card, not entirely sure what he would say when she answered, but knowing that somehow their paths crossing had changed everything for both of them. Eleanor answered on the second ring, her voice warm but surprised. "Jack? I didn't expect to hear from you so soon." Jack took a deep breath, staring at the contract on his kitchen table. "I've been looking at your proposal." "And?" There was a note of anticipation in her voice. "I want to accept it," Jack said, the words coming easier than he'd expected. "But I need to know something first." "Of course. Is this contract something you would have offered to any qualified plumbing company? Or is it because of what happened?" The line went quiet for a moment. Then Eleanor spoke, her voice measured. "Would I have sought out Mitchell Plumbing if we hadn't met the way we did? Probably not. I didn't know your company existed before yesterday, but now that I do know about it, and about you, I believe this arrangement makes perfect business sense." Jack appreciated her honesty. "I don't want special treatment," he explained. If I accept this contract, I want it to be because Hayes Technologies believes in the quality of my work. I understand, Eleanor said. How about this? A 3-month trial period, standard terms, no special favors. At the end of that time, we can evaluate the arrangement. If it's working for both parties, we'll move forward with the full contract. Relief washed over Jack. A trial period felt fair, a chance to prove himself on his own merits rather than accepting charity disguised as business. That sounds reasonable. Excellent, Eleanor replied, and Jack could hear the smile in her voice. My assistant will draw up the revised terms tomorrow, and Jack, thank you. For what? For your integrity. It's refreshing. After they hung up, Jack sat for a long while at his kitchen table, contemplating how quickly life could change. 3 days ago, he had been drowning in debt, working 2 jobs just to stay afloat. Now he had a chance to rebuild his business, to give Lily the life she deserved, all because of a wrong turn on a stormy night. The following Monday, Jack signed the trial contract with Hayes Technologies. By Friday, he had given notice at Reynolds Hardware, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension as he turned in his red vest for the last time. The weekend was spent reorganizing his home office, updating his business cards, and explaining to a delighted Lily that he would be home every evening from now on. No more Mrs. Petrillo's on weeknights? Lily asked, eyes wide. Nope, Jack confirmed, tweaking one of her pigtails. Just you and me, kiddo. And maybe Emma and Ethan sometimes, she added hopefully. Jack smiled. Maybe. We're still on for the aquarium tomorrow, right? Lily nodded enthusiastically. She had talked of little else all week, planning which exhibits. To show the twins first, which sea creatures were her favorites. Her excitement was infectious, and Jack found himself looking forward to the outing as well, though whether it was for Lily's sake or because he would be seeing Eleanor again, he wasn't entirely sure. Saturday dawned clear and bright, perfect weather for their planned excursion. Jack and Lily arrived at the Portland Aquarium 15 minutes early, Lily practically bouncing with anticipation as they waited near the entrance. Do you think they'll like the touch pool? She asked for the 3rd time. Emma said she's never touched a starfish before. I'm sure they'll love it, Jack assured her, checking his watch. It was unlike him to be early for anything, but today felt different, important somehow. At precisely 11 o'clock, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. A security detail emerged first, scanning the area before opening the rear doors. The twins tumbled out, dressed in matching blue outfits that complemented their different hair colors. Eleanor followed, casual in jeans and a light sweater that somehow looked more elegant on her than formal attire would on most women. Lily! The twins cried in unison, rushing toward her with unbridled enthusiasm. Lily met them halfway, immediately launching into a detailed explanation of the aquarium's layout and which exhibits they absolutely couldn't miss. The 3 children moved toward the entrance, already lost in their own world. They've been talking about this all week, Eleanor said as she approached Jack. Her smile was genuine, reaching her eyes in a way that softened her usually composed demeanor. I don't think I've seen them this excited about anything in months. Same. With Lily, Jack admitted. She made a list of all the things she wants to show them. Eleanor glanced at her security team, hovering discreetly nearby. I hope you don't mind the extra company. It's standard procedure whenever the twins are in public. Jack had almost forgotten who Eleanor was. Not just a single mother, but one of the wealthiest women in the country, someone whose children might be targets for kidnapping or worse. The security detail was a stark reminder of the differences in their worlds. Of course, he said. I understand. Eleanor must have caught something in his tone because she touched his arm lightly. For what it's worth, I'd much rather it was just us and the kids. But after what happened with Richard... She trailed off, and Jack sensed there was more to the story of her divorce than tabloid headlines had revealed. Before he could decide whether to ask, Lily called out impatiently, From the entrance. "Dad, come on, we're wasting shark time." The adults laughed, the moment broken. "We'd better not keep them waiting," Eleanor said. "Shark time is clearly a priority." For the next 3 hours, they explored the aquarium together. The security team maintained a respectful distance, blending into the background as much as possible. To Jack's surprise, the outing felt almost normal. The children led the way, their excitement contagious as they moved from exhibit to exhibit. Lily, in her element as tour guide, pointed out her favorite creatures and shared facts she had memorized from previous visits. "Did you know octopuses have 3 hearts?" she informed the twins as they pressed their faces against the glass of a large tank. "And they're super smart. They can open jars and solve puzzles." Emma and Ethan listened with rapt attention, asking questions that Lily answered with scholarly authority. Jack and Eleanor followed behind, occasionally exchanging amused glances over the children's enthusiasm. "She's quite the marine biologist," Eleanor commented, as Lily explained the difference between sea turtles and tortoises to the twins. "She loves science," Jack said proudly. "Her teacher thinks she could get a scholarship someday if she keeps it up." "She will," Eleanor said with certainty. "She has your determination." The casual compliment caught Jack off guard. He glanced at Eleanor, but she was watching the children, a small smile playing on her lips. At the touch pool, Lily guided Emma's hand to gently stroke a starfish. The little girl's face lit up with wonder, and she turned to her mother. "Mom, it feels tickly but rough at the same time." Eleanor crouched beside her daughter, letting Emma guide her hand to feel the creature. "You're right, sweetie, that's amazing." Jack watched the interaction, struck by how different Eleanor seemed outside of business settings, warmer, more relaxed, her guard lowered. When she caught him looking, she didn't avert her gaze, but held it, her green eyes questioning. After the touch pool came the underwater tunnel, where glass panels curved overhead and around them, creating the illusion of walking through the ocean. Schools of colorful fish darted above, while sharks glided by with predatory grace. The children ran ahead, pointing and exclaiming at each new sight. "They seem to be getting along well," Jack observed, as he and Eleanor strolled through the blue-tinted light of the tunnel. "They do," Eleanor agreed. "It's good for Emma and Ethan to spend time with someone like Lily. They don't have many opportunities for normal friendships." "Because of security concerns," Eleanor nodded. "Partly that, and partly because most playdates come with strings attached. Parents who want something from me, children who've been coached to befriend the rich kids." She made air quotes around the phrase, her expression momentarily bitter. "Lily's different. She just sees them as Emma and Ethan, not as the Hayes twins." "That's just how she is," Jack said, watching his daughter patiently explaining something to Ethan, who was nodding. "Seriously, Sarah, my late wife, was the same way. She could talk to anyone, make them feel special." Eleanor glanced at him, her expression softening. "You don't talk about her much." "It's still difficult sometimes," Jack admitted. "We were high school sweethearts. Never imagined life without her." "I'm sorry," Eleanor said quietly. "How long has it been?" 3 years in August, Jack replied. "The cancer was aggressive. From diagnosis to the end, it was less than 8 months." They walked in silence for a moment, the blue light casting shifting patterns across their faces. "Richard and I were never like that," Eleanor said finally, her voice low enough that only Jack could hear her. "There was no great love story. He was charming, ambitious, good on paper. The kind of man my parents approved of." She shook her head slightly. "When I got pregnant with the twins, he seemed happy at first. But after they were born, especially after we learned about Emma's heart condition, everything changed." Jack listened, sensing she rarely spoke about this to anyone. "He couldn't handle not being the center of attention," Eleanor continued. "Or maybe he couldn't handle a child who wasn't perfect. The first surgery was the worst. Emma was so tiny, so fragile. Richard didn't even come to the hospital, said he had meetings he couldn't reschedule. The bitterness in her voice was raw, surprising from someone who seemed so controlled in every other aspect of her life. That's when I knew our marriage was over, she finished. But I held on for another year, trying to make it work for the twins, until I found out he was having an affair with his assistant. Such a cliché, right? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. The divorce was ugly. He tried to claim half of Hayes Technologies, even though it was my family's company. When that failed, he relinquished all parental rights in exchange for a settlement. He gave up his own children for money. Jack couldn't hide his shock. Eleanor nodded, her jaw tight. Best thing he ever did for them, honestly. They barely remember him now. Ahead of them, the twins and Lily had reached the end of the tunnel and were waiting impatiently, waving for the adults to catch up. "Thank you," Eleanor said suddenly, her voice returning to its normal tone. "For listening. I don't usually—" She trailed off, gesturing vaguely. "Any time," Jack said, meaning it. After the aquarium came lunch at a nearby restaurant, a casual seafood place Jack had worried might be too simple for the Hayes family, but that Eleanor declared perfect as soon as they entered. The children, ravenous after their morning of exploration, devoured fish tacos while recounting their favorite parts of the aquarium visit. "I liked the jellyfish best," Emma announced. "They looked like they're dancing." The sharks were cooler, Ethan countered, especially the hammerhead one. "His head looks like a hammer. That's why they're called hammerhead sharks," Lily explained patiently. "But I think the octopus was the best. Remember how it changed colors when the keeper came to feed it?" The adults exchanged smiles over the children's animated conversation. Jack noticed Eleanor relaxing more as the meal progressed. The tension she typically carried in her shoulders gradually easing. When she laughed at something Ethan said, a full, uninhibited laugh that transformed her face. Jack found himself staring, captivated by this glimpse of the woman beneath the polished exterior. After lunch, they walked along the harbour front, the children running ahead under the watchful eyes of Eleanor's security team. The day had turned warm, the sky a brilliant blue dotted with puffy white clouds. Lily mentioned a park with a good playground, Eleanor said as they strolled side by side. "Do you think we have time for one more stop before we call it a day?" Jack checked his watch, surprised to find it was already mid-afternoon. The day had flown by, each moment enjoyable in a way he hadn't experienced in years. "I think we can manage that." At Bellamy Park, the children made a beeline for the playground, Lily leading the twins to her favorite slide. Jack and Eleanor found a bench with a good view of the play area, settling in to watch. "This has been nice," Eleanor said after a moment, her gaze fixed on the children. "Normal." Jack understood what she meant. For a few hours, they had been just two parents enjoying a day out with their kids. No talk of business contracts or class differences or the dramatic circumstances of their meeting. "It has," he agreed. "Lily will talk about it for weeks." "So will the twins," Eleanor smiled. "They don't get many days like this." Jack glanced at her profile, struck again by how different she seemed outside of her corporate persona. Here, watching her children play, she was just Eleanor, not the CEO, not the billionaire, just a mother who loved her kids. "How's the trial period going?" she asked, changing the subject. 2 weeks in now, right?" Jack nodded. "So far, so good. Your maintenance manager at the downtown office is straightforward to work with, and the new equipment I was able to purchase has already made a difference in efficiency." "I'm glad to hear it," Eleanor said sincerely. "The facilities team said your work has been exceptional." Pride warmed Jack's chest. He had thrown himself into the Hayes Technologies contract, determined to prove that Eleanor's faith in his company was justified. The first 2 weeks had been challenging but satisfying, the work more interesting than the routine residential jobs that had previously been his bread and butter. "I appreciate the opportunity," Jack said honestly. "It's changed," Things for us. I'm home for dinner every night now, helping Lily with homework. She seems happier. And you? Eleanor asked, turning to face him fully. Are you happier? The question was direct, personal in a way that caught Jack off guard. He considered it seriously before answering. I am, he admitted, not just because of the financial stability, though that's certainly part of it, but also because... He hesitated, searching for the right words. Because I feel like I'm building something again, not just treading water. Eleanor nodded, understanding in her eyes. That feeling is precious. Hold on to it. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the distant sounds of children's laughter from the playground. Jack was acutely aware of Eleanor beside him, the subtle scent of her perfume, the way the sunlight caught the auburn highlights in her hair, how close their hands were on the bench between them. "Jack," Eleanor began, then paused as if reconsidering. Her words, "I know this arrangement between us started because of unusual circumstances, but I want you to know that I value what's developing here, not just the business relationship, but this." She gestured vaguely toward the playground, where their children played together. Jack felt something shift between them, a recognition of possibilities neither had anticipated when he'd turned down that wrong road on a stormy night. Before he could respond, however, a commotion from the playground caught their attention. Ethan had fallen from the monkey bars and was sitting on the ground, crying. Lily was already kneeling beside him, checking his knee, where a small scrape was visible even from a distance. Eleanor was on her feet immediately, crossing to her son with Jack close behind. The security detail had also moved in, hovering uncertainly. "I'm okay," Ethan sniffled as his mother reached him. "I just slipped. He was doing really well until the last bar," Lily reported earnestly. "He almost made it all the way across." Eleanor crouched down, examining the scrape with gentle fingers. "Just a little scratch, sweetheart. You're being very brave. Does it hurt a lot?" Emma asked her twin, her face pinched with concern. Ethan, seeming to realize he had an audience, straightened his shoulders. "Not too much. I'm tough." Jack had pulled a small first aid kit from his jacket pocket, a habit from years of parenting an active child. He offered it to Eleanor. "Just some antiseptic wipes and Band-Aids. I never leave home without them." Eleanor accepted the kit with a grateful smile. As she cleaned and bandaged Ethan's knee, Jack was struck by how capable she was. This woman, who ran a multi-billion-dollar company, was just as adept at soothing a scraped knee, her movements gentle and assured. "There," she said, pressing the Band-Aid into place. "Good as new. Can I go back and play?" Ethan asked, already squirming to get up. Eleanor hesitated, her protective instinct warring with her desire to let him bounce back. Jack recognized the internal debate. He'd had it countless times with Lily. "How about the swings instead of the monkey bars?" he suggested, offering a compromise. Ethan considered this, then nodded. "Okay, but I'm going to try the monkey bars again next time. I'll make it all the way across." "I know you will, buddy," Jack said, ruffling the boy's hair. As the children ran toward the swings, Eleanor turned to Jack, still holding the first aid. "Kit, thank you for the Band-Aids and the advice." "Just one parent helping another," Jack shrugged, though the words felt inadequate to describe what was growing between them. They returned to the bench, watching as Lily showed the twins how to pump their legs to swing higher. The afternoon light had begun to soften, casting long shadows across the park. "It's getting late," Eleanor noted reluctantly. "We should probably think about heading back soon." Jack nodded, equally reluctant to end the day. "Maybe we could do this again sometime. The children clearly enjoy being together." "I'd like that," Eleanor said, her voice warm, "and not just for the children's sake." The admission hung between them, neither quite ready to explore its full implications, but both acknowledging its truth. As they called the children to prepare for departure, Jack found himself wondering about the strange turns life could take, how a wrong turn on a stormy night had led him here. sitting beside a woman he would never have met under normal circumstances, feeling something he had thought he might never feel again. At the park entrance, as they prepared to go their separate ways, Eleanor and the twins to their waiting SUV, Jack and Lily to his pickup truck, Eleanor impulsively touched Jack's arm. "Would you and Lily like to join us for dinner next Friday at the hotel suite?" Nothing formal, just continuing this. Jack looked down at her hand on his arm, then at her face, open, hopeful, a vulnerability there he suspected few people ever saw. He thought about all the reasons he should say no, all the complications this budding relationship could bring. Then he thought about how it had felt to sit beside her today, talking and laughing as if they'd known each other for years instead of weeks. "We'd like that very much," he said, and was rewarded with a smile that made every complication seem worthwhile. Friday evening arrived with an unexpected flutter of nerves in Jack's stomach as he and Lily prepared for dinner at the Hayes' hotel suite. The past week had flown by in a blur of work and routine, yet thoughts of Eleanor had woven themselves into quiet moments throughout his days. "Dad, which one looks better?" Lily asked, holding up two dresses, one purple with white polka dots, the other a solid teal that matched her eyes. Jack studied both options seriously. "The teal one brings out your eyes," he decided, "but which one do you like better?" "The teal one," Lily agreed, tossing the purple dress onto her bed. "Emma said it's her favorite color, too." As Lily changed, Jack found himself standing before his own closet, contemplating choices with an unusual level of care. He eventually settled on dark jeans and a navy button-down shirt Sarah had given him for his birthday 3 years ago, a shirt he rarely wore because it held too many memories. Tonight, though, it felt right. When they arrived at the hotel, the security team greeted them with professional nods, now familiar enough with the Mitchells to forgo the intense scrutiny of their first meeting. The elevator whisked them to the penthouse level, where Emma and Ethan were waiting impatiently by the door. "Finally," Ethan exclaimed, "we've been waiting forever." "Only 20 minutes, Emma corrected primly, though her excitement was equally evident. "Mum said we couldn't start the pizza without you." "Pizza?" Lily perked up, following the twins into the suite. The formal living area had been transformed. Furniture was pushed aside to make room for a large picnic blanket spread on the floor, surrounded by plush cushions. A variety of board games were stacked nearby, and the dining table was set with casual dinnerware, a far cry from the fine china Jack had half expected. Eleanor emerged from the kitchen area, casual in jeans and a simple green sweater that intensified the color of her eyes. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she wore minimal makeup, a stark contrast to her polished business appearance. Jack found this relaxed version of her even more appealing. "Welcome," she smiled, and Jack couldn't help noticing how it reached her eyes. "I hope you don't mind, but the kids requested an indoor picnic with pizza." "Sounds perfect," Jack replied, relieved at the informal setting. "Can we help with anything?" "Actually, yes," Eleanor nodded toward the kitchen. "The pizza's just arrived. Would you mind bringing it while I finish setting up the drinks?" In the kitchen, away from the excited chatter of the children, a comfortable silence settled between them as they worked side by side. Jack arranging pizza slices onto platters, Eleanor filling glasses with lemonade. "How was your week?" she asked, her shoulder brushing his as she reached for another glass. "Busy, but good," Jack said. "The Hayes Tech maintenance schedule is keeping me on my toes, but I'm enjoying the challenge." Eleanor nodded, pleased. "The facilities manager mentioned your team fixed that persistent drainage issue in the lab building. They've been struggling with that for months." Pride warmed Jack's chest. Just needed someone willing to trace the problem back to its source instead of patching symptoms. "Your previous contractors had been taking the easy route. That's exactly why I wanted your company on board," Eleanor said. You care about doing things right, not just fast or cheap." Their eyes met briefly over the counter, a moment of understanding, passing between them. Jack was acutely aware of how close they were standing, of the subtle scent of her perfume, something light and floral that suited this casual version of Eleanor. The moment was broken by Ethan's impatient voice from the living room. "Mum, Jack, we're starving out here." They laughed, the tension dissipating. "Duty calls," Eleanor said, picking up 2 of the glasses. "Never keep hungry 5-year-olds waiting." The indoor picnic was a hit with the children. They sat cross-legged on the blanket, devouring pizza and chattering about school, friends, and favorite games. Jack and Eleanor sat with them, exchanging amused glances over the children's animated conversations. "Last week," Emma announced between bites, "our teacher asked what we want to be when we grow up. I said I want to be a scientist who invents things like Mom." "What did you say, Ethan?" Lily asked, reaching for another slice. "A firefighter," he replied proudly, "like the ones who came to our house when it was burning." A brief shadow crossed Eleanor's face at the mention of the fire, but she recovered quickly. "What about you, Lily? What do you want to be?" Lily considered the question seriously. "I want to be a marine biologist, or maybe a veterinarian. I haven't decided yet." "Both excellent choices," Jack said, pride evident in his voice. "Lily's teacher says she has a natural gift for science." "Like father, like daughter," Eleanor remarked. When Jack looked puzzled, she continued, "Your approach to that drainage problem was pure scientific method, observation, hypothesis, testing. Not everyone thinks that way." Jack hadn't thought of his work in those terms before, but her assessment was accurate. There was a methodical precision to how he approached plumbing problems, a need to understand systems and their interactions. After dinner, they moved to the board games. The children selected Monopoly, and despite Jack's concerns about competition between the twins and Lily, the game proceeded with minimal drama. Eleanor proved to be a shrewd player, accumulating properties methodically, while Jack took risks that sometimes paid off spectacularly and sometimes left him bankrupt. "I thought you'd be more conservative with your investments," Eleanor teased as he handed over his last bit of Monopoly money after landing on her hotel-laden boardwalk. "Where's the fun in playing it safe?" Jack countered, enjoying the competitive gleam in her eye. "Besides, it's just a game." "Is it?" There was something in her tone, a question about more than just Monopoly, that made Jack look at her more closely. Before he could respond, Lily yawned widely, triggering a chain reaction. From the twins, Eleanor glanced at her watch, surprised to find it was nearly 9:30. "Bedtime for the junior tycoons, I think," she declared, standing to begin clearing the game. "Emma, Ethan, why don't you show Lily your new books while we clean up?" The children wandered off to the twins' bedroom, leaving Jack and Eleanor alone. They worked in comfortable silence, putting away the game and folding the picnic blanket. With the living area restored, Eleanor gestured toward the balcony. "Would you like to step outside for a moment? The view is spectacular at night." Jack hesitated, glancing toward the hallway where the children had disappeared. "Should we check on them first?" Eleanor nodded, appreciating his caution. They found the 3 children in the twins' room, already in the midst of a story. Lily sat on Emma's bed, reading aloud from a picture book while the twins listened with rapt attention. "They seem settled," Eleanor whispered, not wanting to interrupt the moment. "We'll just be on the balcony. The door will be open." The night air was cool but pleasant as they stepped onto the spacious balcony. Portland's lights sparkled below them, the harbour a dark expanse dotted with the running lights of boats. Eleanor led Jack to the railing, where 2 comfortable chairs were positioned to take advantage of the view. "This is breathtaking," Jack admitted, looking out over the city he'd lived in all his life, but had never seen from this perspective. "It helps me think," Eleanor said, her profile illuminated by the city lights. When business problems seem overwhelming, or I'm worried about the twins, I come out here and look at the big picture. She gestured toward the sprawling view. Literal perspective helps me find figurative perspective. Jack understood what she meant. I do something similar with plumbing diagrams. When I can't solve a problem, I sketch out the entire system. Seeing how everything connects usually reveals the solution. Eleanor turned toward him, her expression thoughtful. We're not so different, you and I, despite appearances. The observation hung between them, an acknowledgement of the unusual circumstances that had brought them together, and the surprising connection that had developed since. No, Jack agreed quietly. I don't think we are. A comfortable silence settled as they gazed out at the city lights. Jack was acutely aware of Eleanor beside him, not as the billionaire CEO or the mansion owner, but simply as a woman whose strength, intelligence, and love for her children he had come to admire deeply. Jack, Eleanor said finally, her voice soft but determined. I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Jack turned to face her fully, sensing the importance of the moment. Of course. Is this, she gestured between them, just about the children's friendship and the business arrangement? Or is there something more developing here? The directness of her question was classic Eleanor. No games, no pretense, just honest inquiry. Jack appreciated it, even as his heart raced at the implications. It's more, he admitted, the words coming easier than he had expected. At least for me. Relief flickered across Eleanor's face. For me, too. The simple confirmation shifted something. Between them, acknowledging possibilities neither had anticipated when Jack had turned down that wrong road on a stormy night. But it's complicated, Jack continued. Our worlds are so different, Eleanor. You run a multinational corporation. I fix pipes for a living. Eleanor shook her head firmly. That's surface-level thinking. What matters is who we are, not what we do or what we have. She leaned forward slightly. And who we are, Jack, is two single parents doing our best for our children, carrying past hurts, finding unexpected connection in a world where genuine connection is rare. Put that way, the gap between their worlds seemed less significant, yet practical concerns remained. The media attention, Jack pointed out. If we were to pursue this, it wouldn't just affect us, it would affect Lily, the twins. I know, Eleanor acknowledged, and that's something we'd need to navigate carefully. But Jack, I haven't felt this way about anyone in a very long time, maybe ever. The vulnerability in her admission was striking from a woman known for her composure. Isn't that worth exploring, despite the complications? Before Jack could respond, a small voice called from inside the suite. Dad? Where are you? On the balcony, sweetie, Jack called back. We're just talking. Lily appeared at the doorway, yawning widely. Emma and Ethan fell asleep. I think I'm tired too. Eleanor smiled gently. It has been a long evening. Perhaps we should call it a night. Jack nodded, both disappointed and relieved at the interruption. This conversation needed more time than a few stolen minutes on a balcony. As Jack gathered Lily's things and prepared to leave, Eleanor walked them to the elevator. Lily, half asleep on her feet, leaned against her father's side. Thank you for coming tonight, Eleanor said softly. Both of you. Thank you for having us, Jack replied, equally quiet. Then gathering his courage, he added, about what we were discussing. I'd like to continue that conversation, soon. Eleanor's smile was worth any complication this budding relationship might bring. How about dinner? Just the two of us this. A time. There's a small Italian place downtown I think you'd like. I'd like that, Jack agreed, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Very much. As the elevator doors closed, Jack looked down at Lily, drowsy against his side, and thought about how quickly life could change. How a single moment, a wrong turn on a stormy night, could alter everything that followed. The following. Wednesday, Jack arrived at the Hayes Technologies headquarters for a scheduled maintenance check. As he examined the building's main water system, his phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "Still on for dinner Friday, 7:30 at Alessandro's?" He smiled, typing back his confirmation. They had been texting regularly since the family dinner. Simple. Messages about their days, funny anecdotes about the children, nothing that crossed the line into explicit romance, yet each message strengthened the connection between them. As Jack closed the access panel to the water system, he noticed a man watching him from the hallway. Tall, expensively dressed, with a calculating gaze that made Jack instantly wary. "You must be Mitchell," the man said, not moving from his position. "Richard Warner." He didn't offer his hand. Jack recognized the name immediately. Eleanor's ex-husband, the twins' father, who had relinquished his parental rights for money. He straightened, wiping his hands on a rag. "Mr. Warner, what can I do for you?" "You can tell me what your angle is," Warner replied, his tone conversational but with an underlying edge. "The heroic rescue, the convenient business arrangement, the cozy dinners with Eleanor and the twins. It's a nice setup you've engineered." The accusation was so unexpected and so contrary to how things had actually unfolded that Jack was momentarily speechless. When he found his voice, he kept it level, refusing to be baited. "I don't have an angle, Mr. Warner, and I didn't engineer anything." Warner's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Everyone has an angle when it comes to the Hayes fortune. I'm just curious about yours." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Word of advice, Eleanor may seem soft sometimes, especially when it comes to those kids, but she's Hayes Technologies first, everything else second. Always has been, always will be. The moment you threaten that priority, you'll find yourself cut off just like—" He stopped, recalibrated. "Just be careful what you wish for, plumber." Before Jack could respond, Warner turned and walked away, leaving Jack with a churning discomfort in his stomach. The encounter bothered him throughout the day, Warner's insinuations casting a shadow over what had been developing between him and Eleanor. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Jack sat at his kitchen table staring at his phone, torn between texting Eleanor about the encounter and letting it go. On one hand, Warner's appearance felt significant. Was he back in Eleanor's life? On the other hand, bringing it up might seem like Jack was prying into business that wasn't his concern. Finally, he decided on honesty. "Had an unexpected visitor at Hayes Tech today, your ex-husband. Anything I should know?" Eleanor's response came quickly. "Richard is in town? That's news to me. What did he say?" Jack hesitated, then typed, "Nothing specific, just seemed interested in our friendship." There was a longer pause before Eleanor's next message. "I'm so sorry, Jack. Richard has no role in my life or the twins' lives. He gave up that right years ago. Please don't let whatever he said concern you. Can we talk about this in person? On Friday?" "Of course," Jack replied, relieved by her quick disavowal of any connection to Warner, yet still troubled by the encounter. Friday evening found Jack waiting at Alessandro's, a small, elegant Italian restaurant tucked away on a side street downtown. The maitre d' led him to a corner table where Eleanor was already seated, wearing a simple black dress that complemented her auburn hair, which fell in loose waves around her shoulders. She stood as he approached, greeting him with a warm smile that eased some of his lingering tension about the Warner encounter. "You found it okay?" "Your directions were perfect," Jack replied, taking the seat across from her. He had worried about feeling out of place in what was clearly an upscale establishment, but the intimate setting and Eleanor's genuine welcome made him relax. After they had ordered wine and appetizers, Eleanor leaned forward slightly. "Before We talk about anything else. I want to address Richard's appearance. I had no idea he was in Portland until your text. We haven't communicated directly in over 2 years. He seemed to know about us, Jack said carefully. About the dinners. The twins. Eleanor's expression tightened. I suspect he's been keeping tabs through mutual acquaintances. Richard has always been possessive, even after he walked away. Not because he wants me back, but because he hates the idea of not controlling the narrative. She took a sip of water, composing herself. What exactly did he say to you? Jack hesitated, not wanting to upset her but knowing honesty was essential. He suggested I had an angle, that I was somehow manipulating the situation for my own benefit. And he implied that you would discard me if I ever came between you and the company. Eleanor's eyes flashed with anger. That's rich, coming from him. She set her glass down with controlled precision. Richard projected his own motivations onto everyone around him. He married me for the Hayes name and fortune, so he assumes everyone else has similar ulterior motives. The waiter arrived with their wine, momentarily halting the conversation. After he had gone, Eleanor continued, her voice softer. Jack, I need you to know something. Yes, Hayes Technologies is important to me. It's my family's legacy and my professional passion. But it has never been and will never be more important than the people I care about. The sincerity in her eyes made Jack's lingering doubts from the Warner encounter fade. I believe you, he said simply. I just wanted to be upfront about what happened. I appreciate that, Eleanor smiled, lifting her wine glass. To honesty. Jack clinked his glass against hers. To honesty. As they enjoyed their meal, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Lily's science project, the twins' latest adventures, a funny incident at one of the Hayes tech facilities involving a malfunctioning coffee machine that had somehow sprayed an entire boardroom with espresso. Jack found himself laughing more than he had in years, captivated by Eleanor's sharp wit and the way she listened, truly listened, when he spoke about his own day. By dessert, the Warner encounter had receded to a distant concern, overshadowed by the undeniable connection strengthening between them. As they shared a tiramisu, Eleanor looked up at Jack, her expression turning more serious. About our conversation on the balcony, I meant what I said. I think there's something special developing here, something worth exploring despite the complications. Jack reached across the table, taking her hand in his. The gesture felt natural, right? I think so too. Eleanor's smile illuminated her entire face. So, where do we go from here, Jack Mitchell? Forward, he said simply. 1 step at a time, figuring it out as we go, together. As they left the restaurant, Jack walked Eleanor to her waiting car, where her driver stood discreetly by the door. The night air was cool, stars visible despite the city lights. They paused on the sidewalk, neither quite ready for the evening to end. Thank you for tonight, Eleanor said softly, for being honest about Richard, for this lovely dinner, for everything. Jack looked down at her, struck again by how different she seemed from the polished business executive the world knew. More vulnerable, more real. Without overthinking, he leaned down and kissed her gently. Eleanor responded immediately, her hand coming up to rest lightly on his chest. The kiss was brief but perfect, a promise of possibilities neither had expected to find again. When they parted, Eleanor's eyes reflected the same wonder Jack felt. "Good night, Jack," she whispered. "Call me tomorrow." "Count on it," he promised. As Jack drove home, the city lights blurring past his window, he thought about the strange turns life could take, how a wrong turn on a stormy night had led him to this moment, feeling something he had thought he might never feel again after losing Sarah. Not replacing that love, but finding a new one, different but equally precious. What he couldn't know as he drove through the quiet streets of Portland was that Richard Warner was already setting in motion events that would test this newfound happiness in ways neither Jack nor Eleanor could anticipate. Richard Warner stood at the window of his downtown hotel suite, swirling amber liquid in a crystal tumbler as he gazed at the Portland skyline. The city had always felt provincial to him, a stepping stone he'd used to reach Eleanor Hayes, never a destination in itself. Now, 5 years after walking away with a settlement that most men would consider life-changing, he found himself drawn, back by news reports of a fire at the Hayes mansion and the unlikely hero who had saved the twins. His phone buzzed on the desk behind him. The caller ID displayed Carter, his private investigator. "What do you have for me?" Richard answered without preamble. "Full background on Jack Mitchell as requested," Carter replied. 34 years old, lifelong Portland resident. Inherited Mitchell plumbing from his father 6 years ago. Widowed 3 years ago when his wife Sarah died of cancer. One daughter, Lily, age 8. Financially struggling until recently. Second mortgage on his house. Maxed credit cards. Working 2 jobs. "And now?" Richard prompted, already knowing the answer. Now his company has an exclusive maintenance contract with Hayes Technologies. Started as a 3-month trial, just signed for the full year last week. Estimated value puts him comfortably in the upper middle class, though nowhere near Hayes territory, of course. Richard's jaw tightened. Personal relationship status. That's where it gets interesting, Carter continued. Based on staff interviews and surveillance, it appears Eleanor Hayes is genuinely involved with him. Multiple family outings with the children, private dinners, regular text communications. Last Friday night outside Alessandro's, they were observed kissing, first confirmed romantic contact. Richard scoffed, setting his glass down with more force than necessary. Eleanor Hayes kissing a plumber. How the mighty have fallen. There's more, Carter added. The twins have become attached to Mitchell and his daughter. According to our source in the Hayes household, Emma asked Eleanor if Mr. Jack was going to be their new daddy. This revelation hit Richard unexpectedly. The twins had been infants when he'd left, more concept than reality, abstract responsibilities. He'd been happy to relinquish for financial gain. He'd never considered them developing attachments to another father figure. "Sir," Carter prompted after a prolonged silence, "do you want me to continue surveillance?" Richard composed himself. "Yes, and get me everything you can on this contract between Mitchell Plumbing and Hayes Technologies. I want to know exactly how it's structured." After ending the call, Richard returned to the window, his reflection superimposed over the city. Lights. The man staring back at him was still handsome at 42, though the lines around his eyes had deepened and silver threaded through his dark hair. Success had afforded him the best tailors, the best cosmetic procedures, the best of everything. Except, it seemed, the legacy he had only recently begun to crave. He hadn't given much thought to the twins over the years. The Hayes money had funded a luxurious lifestyle, investments in tech startups, a yacht, homes in the Hamptons and Belize. Yet lately, approaching middle age, Richard had found himself thinking about legacy, about what would remain of him after he was gone. The Hayes name and fortune should have been his children's birthright, a birthright he had sold for what now seemed like temporary pleasures. And now some blue-collar hero was positioning himself to step into the role Richard had abandoned, potentially claiming not just Eleanor but the twins and all that came with them. "Not if I can help it," Richard murmured to his reflection. If Eleanor wanted to slum it with the plumber, that was her business. But the twins, and by extension, potential access to the Hayes fortune through them, those were chips still worth playing for. Across town, oblivious to Richard's machinations, Jack and Lily were grocery shopping, their cart filled with ingredients for the dinner Jack was preparing for Eleanor the following evening. With repairs to the Hayes mansion still underway, Eleanor had suggested they host dinner at their apartment, a suggestion that had initially filled Jack with anxiety, until Eleanor assured him she wasn't interested in his apartment's square footage, just in spending time with him in a place that felt like home. "Can we get ice cream?" Lily asked, eyeing the frozen dessert aisle. Emma said her favorite is mint chocolate chip, and Ethan likes cookie dough. Jack smiled at his daughter's excitement. In the month since the aquarium outing, the three children had become inseparable, with playdates whenever their schedules allowed. "Sure, but let's get vanilla too, in case they want options." As they continued through the store, Jack's phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "Just finished the meeting. Board approved the renewable energy expansion unanimously. Celebrating with you tomorrow. Feels perfect. Need me to bring anything?" Jack typed back one-handed while examining tomatoes. "Just yourself. Everything is under control here. Congrats on the board's approval." Her response came quickly. "Can't wait, missing you." 3 simple words that made Jack's heart beat faster. After their kiss outside Alessandro's, their relationship had evolved naturally. Phone calls that lasted late into the night, stolen moments when the children were occupied, a deepening connection that surprised them both with its intensity. They were taking things slowly, mindful of the children and the complexities of their situations, but the direction was clear. "Dad, you're smiling at your phone again," Lily observed, pulling him back to the present. "Was that Miss Eleanor?" "Yes, it was," Jack admitted, pocketing his device. "She's looking forward to dinner tomorrow." Lily nodded sagely. "I think she really likes you, Dad, like really likes you." Jack chuckled at his daughter's perceptiveness. "I really like her too." "I know," Lily said matter-of-factly, adding celery to their cart. "You laugh more now, and you whistle when you're making breakfast." She paused, suddenly serious. "Mom would be happy about that. She always said you should whistle more." The simple observation caught Jack off guard, emotion tightening his throat. Sarah had indeed teased him about his tendency towards seriousness, often breaking into exaggerated show tunes until he couldn't help but laugh. "You think so?" Lily nodded confidently. "She told me once that when you love somebody, you want them to be happy even if you're not there. I think she'd like Miss Eleanor because she makes you happy again." Jack knelt down, pulling his remarkably wise daughter into a hug. "When did you get so grown up?" "I'm 8 3/4, Lily reminded him with mock indignation. "That's practically a teenager." Back at their apartment as they unpacked groceries, Jack found himself seeing the space through fresh eyes, the mismatched furniture collected. Over years, the water stain on the kitchen ceiling he'd been meaning to fix, the cramped dining area where they would host a billionaire CEO tomorrow night. For a moment, insecurity threatened to overwhelm him. Then he remembered Eleanor's words from one of their late-night conversations. "Wealth doesn't make a home, Jack. Love does." Some of the most beautiful mansions I've been in felt like mausoleums. Your apartment, with the photos everywhere and Lily's artwork on the fridge, that's a real home. By the time dinner rolled around the following evening, Jack had managed to tame his anxiety. The apartment was clean, a savory aroma filled the kitchen, and Lily had arranged flowers, purchased with her own allowance, in a vase on the table. Jack had just removed the lasagna from the oven when a knock announced Eleanor's arrival. Lily beat him to the door, flinging it open with a cheerful, "Hi, Miss Eleanor, you look pretty." Eleanor stood in the hallway, elegant in a simple dress, a bottle of wine in one hand and a small gift bag in the other. She had come alone, having arranged for Mrs. Lawson to watch the twins for the evening, a rare night for just the adults. "Thank you, Lily," Eleanor smiled, stepping inside. "Those flowers are beautiful. Did you arrange them yourself?" "Yep. Dad helped a little, but mostly it was me," Lily beamed, accepting the gift bag Eleanor offered her. Jack watched the interaction, struck again by how naturally Eleanor fit into their lives, how she spoke to Lily not with the condescension some adults used with children, but with genuine interest and respect. "Something smells amazing," Eleanor said, turning to Jack with a warm smile that made his heart skip. She handed him the wine bottle and leaned in to kiss his cheek, a restrained greeting with Lily present, but her lingering hand on his arm promised more later. Dinner was relaxed and joyful, any awkwardness dissipating as they shared stories and laughter. Lily dominated the conversation initially, eager to show Eleanor her science project and latest drawings. After dessert, when Lily reluctantly went to her room to finish homework, the adults moved to the small living room, settling on the couch. "With glasses of wine?" "Thank you for this," Eleanor said, looking around the apartment with appreciation. "It's exactly what I needed after the chaos of the board meetings." "Congratulations again on the expansion approval." Jack raised his glass in a small toast. "From what you've told me, it's going to revolutionize the company's direction." Eleanor nodded, pride evident in her expression. "Renewable energy has always been my passion project within Hayes Technologies. My grandfather started the company manufacturing conventional power systems, but I've been pushing us towards sustainability for years. This expansion is the tipping point, more than half. Our resources will now be dedicated to green initiatives." "That's incredible," Jack said sincerely. "You're building something that matters." "I hope so," Eleanor sighed, setting her glass down. "The board members care about profit margins, of course, but I keep thinking about what kind of world Emma and Ethan will inherit. I want Hayes Technologies to be part of the solution, not the problem." Jack nodded, understanding her perspective. His own concerns about Lily's future had shifted since meeting Eleanor. No longer just about financial security, but about the kind of world she would grow up in, the values she would carry forward. "Speaking of the twins," Jack said, "Lily mentioned they're excited about the zoo trip this weekend." Eleanor smiled, leaning into him slightly. "They've been talking about nothing else. Emma has a list of animals she wants to see, in priority, very organized, that one. Wonder where she gets that from," Jack teased, slipping his arm around Eleanor's shoulders, drawing her closer. She relaxed against him, the day's tension visibly easing from her posture. "It's been a long week," she admitted, "but being here with you, it makes everything else fade into the background." Jack brushed a strand of hair from her face, marveling at how this extraordinary woman had come into his life. "I know what you mean. Sometimes I still can't believe any of this is real." Eleanor's eyes softened as she looked up at him. "It's real, Jack, more real than anything I've felt in a very long time." When he kissed her, it was different from their first kiss outside the restaurant, deeper, without restraint, a culmination of feelings that had been building for weeks. Eleanor responded with equal fervor, her fingers threading through his hair as she pressed closer. "I think," she whispered when they finally parted, "that we should check on the progress of the mansion repairs. The east wing might be habitable sooner than expected." Jack caught her meaning immediately. The Hayes Hotel suite, while luxurious, came with staff and security always nearby. The mansion, once repaired, would offer more privacy than either of their current living situations. "Sounds like an excellent plan," he agreed, his voice rough with emotion. "I happen to know a good plumber who could inspect the water systems." Eleanor laughed softly, the sound warming him from within. "I bet you do." Later, as they said goodnight, at the door, Eleanor insisting on returning to the hotel despite the late hour, mindful of Lily's presence, Jack felt a contentment he hadn't experienced in years. Their relationship was evolving naturally, their worlds merging despite the vast differences in their backgrounds. The complication of Richard Warner's appearance seemed a distant concern compared to the reality of holding Eleanor in his arms. What Jack couldn't know was that across town, Richard was setting his plan in motion, A plan designed to drive a wedge between Jack and Eleanor by exploiting the very differences they were working to bridge. The following Monday, Jack arrived at Hayes Technologies headquarters for scheduled maintenance on several executive floor bathrooms, mundane work, but he approached it with his usual thoroughness. As he wheeled his equipment cart through the gleaming lobby, a security guard he didn't recognize stopped him. ID and work order. Please, the guard demanded, his tone curt. Jack produced both, slightly puzzled by the increased scrutiny. He had been coming to this building regularly for over a month and was on friendly terms with most of the security staff. The guard examined the documents with exaggerated care before reluctantly waving him through. New protocols, he explained, without elaboration. In the executive bathroom, Jack had just begun disassembling a problematic faucet when the door swung open and Richard Warner entered, his timing too perfect to be coincidental. "Mitchell," Richard nodded, as if their meeting was unexpected. "Fancy running into you here." Jack straightened, wiping his hands on a rag. "Mr. Warner, can I help you with something?" Richard leaned against the marble countertop, examining his manicured nails. "I was just curious about something. Did Eleanor tell you she's taking the twins to New York next month? Some charity gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Very exclusive, old money crowd. The kind where family legacy matters." Jack kept his expression neutral, though the information was news to him. "Eleanor's schedule is her business." "Of course," Richard agreed smoothly. "I just wondered if you'd be attending. It seems you two have become quite close." The pause was deliberate, loaded with insinuation. "Though I can't imagine you own a proper tuxedo. Do plumbers even wear formal attire?" The barb was juvenile, but Jack refused to be baited. "Was there something you needed fixed in here, Mr. Warner? Because if not, I have work to do." Richard's smile tightened. "You know, I admire your restraint. It must be challenging, straddling these two worlds. Your plumbing business, your modest apartment, and then Eleanor's world of private jets and billion-dollar deals. The twins' upcoming schooling at Westridge Academy alone costs more annually than most people make in a year." This, too, was news to Jack. He and Eleanor hadn't discussed the twins' education yet, though it made sense they would attend an exclusive private school. Seeing his momentary hesitation, Richard pressed his advantage. "Has Eleanor introduced you to her mother yet? Beatrice Hayes is quite the formidable woman, very particular about who enters the family circle. She didn't approve of me, even with my Princeton education and family connections. I can only imagine what she'd make of you." Jack had heard about Beatrice Hayes, the family matriarch who had reluctantly handed control of Hayes Technologies to Eleanor years ago, but still maintained considerable influence. Eleanor rarely spoke of her mother, which Jack had attributed to normal family complications, not the class implications Richard was suggesting. "If you'll excuse me," Jack said firmly, turning back to his work. "I have a job to finish." Richard pushed away from the counter, straightening his tailored suit. "Just some friendly advice, Mitchell. You may have rescued the twins, and Eleanor might be enjoying this diversion, but sooner or later reality reasserts itself. People return to their natural habitats." He headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and before I forget, Eleanor's birthday gala is being planned for next month at the Hayes Summer Estate in the Hamptons. Has she mentioned it? The guest list includes 3 senators, a Supreme Court justice, and the Secretary of Energy. I'm sure she'd be happy to explain to them what you do for a living." After Richard left, Jack stood motionless for several minutes, his mind racing. Nothing Richard had said was overtly threatening, yet each comment had been precisely calculated to plant seeds of doubt. Were these worlds truly bridgeable? Could a relationship survive such vast differences in background, wealth, social circles? Jack and Eleanor had been focusing on their growing feelings, on the easy relationship between their children, avoiding discussions about the practical complications of their different lives. Now those unaddressed questions loomed larger. Later that evening, as Jack helped Lily with her math homework, his phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "Just got out of budget meetings. Exhausted, thinking of you. Dinner tomorrow night, Jack." Stared at the message, Richard's words echoing in his mind. He wanted to respond naturally, to suggest a restaurant or offer to cook, but doubt crept in, freezing his fingers over the keyboard. What was he doing? Was he setting himself, and worse, Lily up for inevitable heartbreak? "Dad?" Lily's voice pulled him back to the present. "Is that Miss Eleanor? Can we have dinner with them tomorrow? Emma was telling me about a new game they got." Looking at his daughter's hopeful expression, Jack made a decision. Richard Warner's insinuations were just that. Calculated attempts to manipulate the situation. The connection he shared with Eleanor, the friendship between their children, those were real, not the artificial constructs of class and wealth. "Let me check if they're free," he said, typing a reply. "Dinner sounds perfect. Lily's asking if the twins can join. We could do pizza at the park if the weather holds." Eleanor's response came immediately. "Love that idea. The twins miss Lily. Park at 6. I'll bring the pizza if you bring that homemade lemonade the kids loved last time." Just like that, the tension Richard had tried to create dissipated. This was the reality of their relationship. Simple plans, shared responsibility, genuine connection. The galas and private schools and family estates were part of Eleanor's life, yes, but they weren't what defined her or what drew Jack to her. As he helped Lily finish her homework, Jack resolved to talk openly with Eleanor about the concerns Richard had raised. Not because he doubted their relationship, but because partnership required honesty, especially when navigating uncharted waters. What Jack didn't realize was that Richard Warner was just getting started, and his next move would target not just Jack's insecurities about class differences, but the very foundation of trust he and Eleanor were building together. The summer sun painted golden streaks across the newly renovated east wing of the Hayes mansion, where workers were putting final touches on the rebuilt structure. Eleanor stood on the terrace, watching as Lily taught the twins how to make daisy chains on the expansive lawn. The three children had grown inseparable over the past 3 months, their bond seeming to strengthen with each passing week. "They look happy," Jack said, stepping onto the terrace to join her. His work clothes had been replaced by casual weekend attire, a simple change that still felt significant. The boundaries between his professional role at the mansion and his personal relationship with Eleanor had gradually dissolved, much like the perceived barriers between their worlds. Eleanor leaned into him as his arm encircled her waist. "Do Emma asked me this morning if Lily could come to the Hamptons with us next month?" Jack tensed slightly at the mention of the Hamptons estate, a reminder of Richard's comments that still occasionally nagged at him despite his best efforts. "That's quite an invitation." Eleanor turned to face him, immediately sensing his discomfort. "What is it? You've had something on your mind all week." Jack hesitated, then decided on honesty. "Richard mentioned your birthday gala at the Hamptons estate, and the twins starting at Westridge Academy. Things we haven't discussed." Understanding dawned in Eleanor's eyes. "Ah, Richard's been busy, hasn't he?" She took Jack's hand, leading him to a stone bench overlooking the gardens. "Jack, I've been putting off those conversations not because I'm hiding anything, but because I'm still figuring things out myself." "What do you mean?" Eleanor sighed, gathering her thoughts. "After meeting you, after seeing how you and Lily live, I've been re-evaluating many things about my own life. The endless social obligations, the political maneuvering, the expectations that come with the Hayes name." She squeezed his hand. "The twins are happier playing in the park with Lily than they ever were at those elaborate playdates I used to arrange with the right families. But your world is still your world, Jack pointed out gently. "The galas, the private schools, the family estates, that's part of who you are." "Is it?" Eleanor challenged, surprising him. "Or is it just what was expected of me? Because lately, I've been wondering what parts of that world actually matter to me and what parts I maintain out of habit or obligation." Below them on the lawn, Lily had crowned each twin with a daisy chain, their laughter carrying up to the terrace. Eleanor watched them with a soft smile before continuing. "I've decided not to send the twins to Westridge. I'm enrolling them in Oakridge Elementary instead." Jack's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "The public school near my neighborhood, but I thought, that's where Lily goes, right?" Eleanor nodded. "It has an excellent science program and real economic diversity. I want Emma and Ethan to grow up, understanding that the world is bigger than the privileged bubble Richard and I were raised in." The decision was significant, a deliberate step away from the elite path that had been predetermined for the Hayes heirs. Jack studied Eleanor's face, finding only certainty there. "As for the birthday gala," she continued, "I've cancelled it. I'm having a small dinner instead, just family and close friends, including you and Lily, of course." A mischievous smile played at her lips. "My mother is not pleased, but she'll survive the disappointment," Jack laughed, though Richard's words about Beatrice Hayes's likely disapproval echoed distantly in his mind. "I've yet to meet your mother, and I'm not in any rush to make that happen," Eleanor admitted candidly. "Beatrice Hayes is a force of nature and frankly exhausting. She'll eventually accept you because you make me happy, but she'll be difficult about it simply because that's who she is." The honesty was refreshing, Eleanor acknowledging the complications without diminishing them or allowing them to overshadow what mattered most. Jack felt the last of his Richard-induced doubts begin to fade. "I've been thinking about the future too," he said, turning to face her fully. "About where this is going, where we're going." Eleanor's expression softened. "And where do you think that is?" "Somewhere together," Jack said simply. "I don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but I know that's what I want. You, me, the kids, finding our way forward as a family, however unconventional that might look." The word family hung between them, full of meaning and possibility. Eleanor's eyes glistened with sudden emotion. "I want that too," she whispered, "more than I realized until this moment." Their kiss was interrupted by the children's approach, their footsteps pounding up the terrace steps. "Mom, Dad, look what Lily made us!" Ethan exclaimed, proudly displaying his flower crown. Neither adult commented on Ethan's unconscious use of Dad in reference to Jack, the first time he had done so, but their exchanged glance acknowledged its significance. "Those are beautiful." Eleanor smiled. "Are you three hungry? We could have lunch on the terrace." As they gathered around the outdoor table, waiting for the housekeeper to bring out sandwiches, Jack marveled at how natural it all felt, this blending of their lives, their families. The vast differences in their circumstances seemed increasingly irrelevant compared to the values and feelings they shared. After lunch, Jack's phone rang, a plumbing emergency at a regular client's home that couldn't wait until Monday. As he reluctantly prepared to leave, Eleanor walked him to his truck. "Will you come back for dinner?" she asked. "Lily can stay and play with the twins all afternoon if she wants." "Are you sure?" Jack was still conscious of imposing on Eleanor's weekends, despite her repeated assurances that she preferred having them around. Eleanor rolled her eyes affectionately. "Jack Mitchell, when will you accept that this is where I want you to be? Where do we all want you to be?" Her directness made him laugh. "I'm working on it, and yes, I'll be back for dinner." What neither of them noticed was the sleek black car parked just beyond the mansion's gates, or the telephoto lens capturing their embrace before Jack drove away. 2 days later, Jack arrived at the downtown Hayes Technologies building for scheduled maintenance, only to be stopped by security in the lobby. "I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell, but your credentials have been flagged," the guard explained uncomfortably. "I need to call upstairs for clearance." While they waited, Jack spotted a familiar figure crossing the lobby, Richard Warner, who changed direction. When he noticed Jack and approached with a self-satisfied smile, "Mitchell," he nodded, "having some trouble?" Before Jack could respond, the security guard returned. "Sorry for the delay, Mr. Mitchell. You're cleared to proceed." He shot a wary glance at Richard before adding, "Ms. Hayes asked to see you in her office when you arrive upstairs." Richard's smile faltered slightly. "Interesting. Well, don't let me keep you from your plumbing duties." In Eleanor's executive suite, Jack found her standing by the window, tension evident in her posture. She turned when he entered, her expression a mixture of anger and determination. "Richard's back on the board," she said without preamble. "He convinced my mother and 2 other major shareholders to support his reinstatement as a non-executive director. The vote passed this morning." Jack absorbed this news with growing concern. How is that possible, after everything he did? "Politics," Eleanor said bitterly, "and opportunism. There was a minor setback with the renewable energy initiative. Nothing significant, but Richard manipulated it to suggest the company needs his steady financial guidance." She made air quotes around the phrase. "My mother has always had a blind spot where he's concerned." Jack could see she was deeply troubled. "What does this mean for Hayes Technologies, for you?" "It means board meetings are going to be more unpleasant," Eleanor sighed. "But it doesn't change anything fundamental. I'm still CEO, still majority shareholder." She closed the distance between them, taking his hands in hers. "And it absolutely doesn't change anything between us." As if on cue, Jack's phone buzzed with a news alert. He glanced down, then froze at the headline, "Hayes, Iris and Hero Plumber, Unlikely Romance Blooms." Below was a photograph of their embrace outside the mansion 2 days earlier. He leaked this, Jack realized, showing Eleanor the phone. "This is why he's been hanging around, gathering ammunition." Eleanor scanned the article, her expression darkening. "Classic Richard. He thinks public exposure will pressure me, or embarrass me, or make you uncomfortable enough to back away." She looked up at Jack, fire in her eyes. "He's wrong on all counts." She reached for the intercom on her desk. "Diane, please schedule a press conference for tomorrow morning, and find out which board member leaked personal information to the tabloids, though we both know it was Richard Warner." After ending the call, Eleanor turned back to Jack, determination replacing her earlier tension. "I'm done letting Richard, or anyone else, dictate the terms of my life. Yes, our relationship will now be public fodder. Yes, there will be gossip and speculation, but I refuse to let that affect what we're building together." Jack marveled at her strength, her certainty. Where he had once seen only the polished exterior of a powerful CEO, he now saw the depth of her character, the fierce protectiveness, the unwavering integrity, the capacity for love that had been dormant until circumstances had thrown them together. "What are you going to say at the press conference?" he asked. Eleanor's smile was both tender and resolute. "The truth, that sometimes the most valuable things come into our lives through unexpected circumstances. That wealth and status mean nothing compared to the connections we forge with others. That what started with a rescue has become something neither of us was looking for, but both of us needed." She stepped closer, resting her hands on his chest. "And that anyone who has a problem with the CEO of Hayes Technologies loving a plumber can take their concerns directly to me." Jack wrapped his arms around her, all remaining doubts evaporating. "I love you too, you know." "I know," Eleanor whispered, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. "Now let's go pick up our children and tell them the news that we're making this official. I have a feeling they've been waiting for this announcement longer than we have." As they left the office together, hand in hand, Jack reflected on how a single wrong turn on a stormy night had led him exactly where he needed to be. Not to a mansion or to wealth, but to a family reconstructed from separate lives, bound together by choice rather than circumstance. And in that knowledge was a certainty greater than any he had known since losing Sarah, that love, when it comes unexpectedly, can be the most powerful force for healing broken hearts and building new beginnings. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.